Danyo. How are you doing, my friend? It's so nice to see you.
Clark, I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
I know you're continuing to stay busy, great clients and projects, and I know how much you love your work, and so I always appreciate you sliding in some time just to share some of the most common questions and the things that you're hearing all the time. So thank you for taking a few moments with us.
Sure. Happy to help.
I've got here a thought that I believe has been a reoccurring question, probably since the beginning, and this is about what is the success rate of hair restoration. Success rate. When you hear that, what does that mean to you? Does success mean different things to different people? How do you measure this? So this is a big question and a really important one.
It's massive. I mean, it's kind of like looking at a formula, and everybody's formula is different. And so in a formula, you have like an answer, and the answer in this formula is kind of like the results. And so, the formula could be an addition thing. Sometimes it's a subtraction issue. I mean, we're literally taking grafts out, because maybe work was done in a poor fashion. Sometimes we're adding just head hair. Sometimes we're doing it no shave. Sometimes we're doing it shaved. And that discussion, we've talked about this before, it all depends on, what's going on in their life. And obviously there's a cost differential, but we do no shave a lot. But, for some people, maybe that's not part of the equation. Sometimes we have to use beard and chest. So much of it goes in. The other aspect that's part of the equation is going to be factors. So the factors are going to be, how much density do we have to actually put in? How big of an area are we filling? Is it one area, say the frontal hairline versus the crown, or is it both? Is there a texture difference between, let's say we're using beard or chest and using hair combined? Is there an issue with maybe thinner type hair versus somebody who's got coarse curly hair? And so these factors all come into it. So I'm not trying to complicate things, but I do think there's so much difficulty when you go online and you're looking at these videos. And I'll just say that people are showing their best stuff. It makes people have a perception that, even though my donor site's not really good and I have a big area to cover and I have thin hair, I'm going to look like this guy. So there's kind of a perceptual issue.
Yes, and of course, everything on social media as well. Like, there's so much comparison. So how do you think about having realistic expectations? What does that process look like?
I think it's vital. I am not the type of doctor that I don't even sell anything in my office. So I never want to be like a used car salesman. And a lot of places say, we guarantee this or that. Because of all those factors, you just don't know. I mean, the other big factor is, that with hair transplant, the studies have shown that if you do everything right, you should have 95% of those follicles, taking hold and actually growing. If you even do it at a higher level, you can have even as close to 100% as possible. But on the flip side, there are studies that show that 1% to 2% of people don't have the growth or have no growth at all. So, these are kind of inherent risks, and we don't know, other than there may be some risk factors such as like somebody that smokes or uses tobacco products. There may be an issue with growth. People with, major medical issues, especially maybe some of the inflammatory conditions, autoimmune disease, things like that. Or if there's kind of an atypical alopecia. So all this stuff, again, it's this formula. And it requires sitting down with a doctor, not a sales team. We've talked about this so many times, to kind of walk through that formula to say, this is what I anticipate your results to be. And, today, I did a massive case. I did 4,000 grafts on one patient today.
That's a large order right there. That's a big operation. That's in a single day.
Yeah. And we went from,
wow,
the whole front, the whole way back into the crown. And he had some existing hair, so we did a lot of fill-in, but he's going to have a great result. But even with that number of grafts, he still had in his mind a perception, am I going to look like this guy? And I said, I can only hope. But the picture he showed, the guy had hair thicker than you, Clark. So,
oh, wow.
I said maybe it might take a couple procedures to get to that. But so I
Right.
think, with hair restoration, the success is high. It has to be doctor driven. You have to really maybe not over research, but find a physician that can kind of lead you down the road. I think the over research stuff creates a lot of confusion. There's a lot of comparison shopping, like I should look like this guy. And if you go through the process and you don't, it can be frustrating and cause a lot of disillusionment. So kind of touched on kind of the surgical aspect, but really, people can get some good results with medical management. I'm not as much of like a PRP guy. I get asked all the time, do you do stem cells or exosomes and things like that? And I don't. At this point, I wouldn't suggest anybody kind of go down that route unless they're in a research project. But some of the medications like finasteride and minoxidil, we write it a lot. And I think for men, it's a great treatment, especially low dose finasteride 4 days a week and a daily dose of oral minoxidil. I've had people with about a 75 to 80% chance of like stopping the hair loss and about a 50% chance of actually having some improved volume. So those are good statistics. And when you combine that, say, with hair transplant, I mean, that's part of the equation. Again, all on the positive, keeping all kind of the factors. Those sometimes they can be difficult to change, but if you add something that's improving volume and decreasing the rate of hair loss, I mean, those are all really, positive things in the equation to ultimately get that answer, which is going to be your final result.
That's helpful to hear. It's about this equation. It's about the formula. And what I'm hearing from you is, hey, talk to a doctor. If you go down the rabbit hole of your own, of a ton of research, it can get really confusing quickly. And then, what you want to avoid as a salesperson, making a quote guarantee. And so if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And that's just
Yeah.
kind of a rule of life. So realistic expectations, so helpful. What else would you say is part of this? I heard you say something about I think it was more the one treatment or how the
Yeah.
visits work. So what are some other things that go into the success rate of this formula?
Sure. So I hear a lot when I do consults. I only want to do this one time. I don't want to come back. That oftentimes is almost impossible, especially if there's hair loss going from the frontal hairline back into the crown. I mean, that's generally done in stages. But even so, I mean, if you look at the data on people that get their frontal hairline done, 50% of those patients actually need a second procedure, to kind of put the cherry on top, the icing, on top, to make it really look good. I mean, we don't know. A lot of times you hear about different stars having hair transplant and things like that. Well, how many did they have, and how many grafts did they have? A lot of the stars even have hair systems. It's tough to know. Or
They have
they
hair
use,
systems.
yeah, like
What does that
small
mean?
toupees or even large toupees.
Okay, gotcha. So that might be totally concealed, but you just don't know someone's life
Exactly. Yeah.
from a
So
from a
you
photo.
just can't compare yourself with these really high expectations that it can be tough to fulfill. And, I'm a realist, and I have honest discussions with people to just say, look, this is what I think you have from a donor perspective. I see consults all the time, and, some people have like no beard or chest hair, and they have a lot of hair loss, and they have a very small donor site in the back, and you have to pick your battles. I mean, we can do things to make things better, but the expectation of looking like you were when you're 9 years old, I mean, it's really difficult to fulfill, and it's just something that I'm not going to lead people down that hole, that
That's
rabbit hole.
yeah, that's great to have that up front from a medical doctor like yourself, like your medical team, all
Yeah.
of that. So as we're starting to wrap up, what's the follow up process look like as we're thinking about this formula
Yep.
for the success rate?
So let's start with medical management. If you are a male patient and you start, say, finasteride and or minoxidil, the process from a follow-up standpoint is going to be at 6 months. And during that time, you just need to monitor for any side effects. With finasteride, you can get potentially sexual dysfunction, but not if you take it low dose. It's very, very rare. If you take it just 4 days a week instead of every day. Minoxidil, dizziness, but minus any of those things. I mean, a 6 month follow up is really a good time to just kind of see where we are. So generally when I start somebody on a medication, like last night I did a consult with somebody, I just didn't think he was a good hair transplant candidate. He's a young guy. He hasn't been on any medications. He has a little bit of volume loss without a lot of scalp showing. So we have a small fee to write the medications, but we ended up calling that in today, and he's on our list to follow up in 6 months. From a hair transplant perspective, because when you move a hair, the hair within the graft sheds and the graft goes dormant for about 3 to 4 months. So I generally, unless something comes up like a pimple or pain or whatever, which is pretty rare, there's really no need to follow up from hair transplant until about 6 months, which is a perfect time, and then 12 months. And have documented, follow-up pictures. And then just stay in touch. I mean, a lot of the people at 12 months we discharge, or sometimes even at 6 months we're planning to do another procedure. Let's say we did the frontal hairline, then we're going to jump to the crown, or maybe adding a little bit more to what we did before. So proper follow-up is key to get the optimal results with hair restoration. Again, I think it's with somebody who specializes in hair restoration. I mean, there are a lot of physicians, any physician can really prescribe finasteride, minoxidil, but I also think, again, back to that formula, it's somebody well-versed in that formula to kind of optimize results. I think that's what you should be looking for.
Dr. Danyo, a lot of great information as always. I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for helping us understand that formula and not just taking a look at the end result, just looking at all the things that go into it to find the best path forward. So with that said, thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate you, Clark. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to Hair Restoration with Dr. Daniel A. Danyo. Book your consultation today with Dr. Danyo by calling 678-845-7521 or online at nahairrestoration.com. And be sure to follow, rate, and review this show wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.